Hi, this is Donna. Welcome to DD Paper Crafts. In today's video, we're making this gable lid style box. This particular tray box is 4 inches square and it's 1.5 inches deep, but you can of course change up the size of the base box if you so wish. The box is not too tricky to put together, so let's get started. The starting cardstock for the tray is 9.5 by 7. Along the long side, score at 1 1/4, 2 3/4, 6 3/4, and 8 1/4. Rotate, and on the short side, score at 1 1/2 and 5 1/2. Rotate the piece back to the long side, take your ruler and line your ruler up with a 3.5 inch mark down the left hand side of your scoreboard, and we're going to make a pencil mark between 1/4 inch and 1 inch, and between 8 1/2 inches and 9 1/4 inches. So we're making a pencil mark which is 1/4 inch from the score line here and the score line here, and it's 3/4 inch long. So that's the indicator for our slots for our piece. These sections here with the slots are going to be the equivalent of these side sections here, which I'll show you on my prototype. Now you can obviously have these square, or I want to have mine with a slightly curved edge. So I've chosen a circle die, and this one happens to be 4 3/8 inch in diameter, and I'm just going to line it up with the score line running horizontally here and these two verticals, and place it on and run it up to the top edge of the cardstock, and I'm just going to draw around that to create the curve for the shape. Now you don't need to have it shaped, you could leave it square, or you might have a die that you want to use. You want to make sure that if you are adding any shape in, you run the top edge of the die right up to the top edge of the cardstock. So you want to make sure you've got the 1/4 inch above the end of the slot, because that's going to be this piece, which just sits over the top of the tab like so. So you don't want that to be too thin, otherwise that's obviously going to be quite weak. And now, before I do anything else, I'm going to cut my slots into place, and you do want to make sure that you cut these as slots rather than slits, because obviously, because they're going to have 2 layers of cardstock come together and go through them, so we want to make sure they're wide enough. So you can see that's that wide. If I fold over a piece of cardstock which is the same, I can see that that is going to fit through that slot. So you can test the width of your slots that way. And we can now fold and burnish along all of the score lines. Now obviously you can use the concept of when we come to create the handles and the tab section exactly the same as this, but you can change up the base tray of the box to any size that you need for your particular item. Have your piece so that your slots are running horizontally. I'm going to cut up the first score line to the horizontal like so, move along, cut up the next score line, then I'm going to cut along each of the score lines on the other end like so. Just move the first tab under and out of the way, and we're going to take a wedge from this tab here and move this end one out of the way, and we're going to take a wedge from this tab here. Rotate and repeat on this side. Now you don't, once you see how we're cutting this, you don't need to follow the same cutting order. As long as your tray ends up looking the same, it doesn't matter what order you cut the tabs in. Now I'm going to follow my pencil mark around and cut away around my shaped edge. like so. Now what you may want to do before we put the box together is you may want to add your patterned paper onto these two sections, flip the piece over and then recut your slot through your patterned paper. You would be able to do it after the box is made if I show you on my prototype. If I add patterned paper onto here, I can sit the box up in this format and then recut through the slot. So just think about what you're going to find easier. So now we can secure our tray together. The process is exactly the same as it would be if we were making any other tray. We're going to just add our glue onto the glue tabs, and then we're going to pull those around and make sure that you get a nice neat right angle on the corner. So this is our tray and they are the sides which are going to come up. So we now want to make the handles. For the handles you'll need two pieces which are 4 inches times 4 inches, and along one side score at 1.5 and 3.5. So this is our glue tab to secure it into the tray, the lid which is going to come across the top of the box like so, and then our handle element. The next thing we're going to do is put our markings onto the handle. So I'm going to flip it over, work on the reverse, and I've got the 1/2 inch tab at the bottom. So take your pencil, we're going to start by making a mark along the top edge at 1.25 inches and 2 3/4 inches. Line your ruler up with the 1/2 inch mark down the left hand side. Run a line from 1.5 across to 2.5. Move your ruler down to the 1 inch line and make a line across between 1 inch and 3 inches. Remove your piece from the scoreboard. We're going to join up the internal lines. So this bit we're going to cut away with our craft knife and ruler, and then from the top pencil mark draw down to the end of the score line, and do this lightly because you will need to rub some of these pencil lines away. So that's our basic handle shape, but obviously what we don't have is the tabs or the hooks on the side for our slots to fit on. Now obviously you can change up any of these internal marks. You might not want your handle to be as wide, you might want your internal handle hole as it were to be bigger, so you can change any of those if you so want. We now want to position the tabs so that they fit within our slots. Now I didn't want to have to work out 4 lots of measurements, so I'm going to make one template which I'm then going to use to create the 4 tabs that we need, and it will also mean that I have a template which I can use at a later date for any other gable handles that I want to make. So I have a piece of cardstock which is 2 inches long and it's 7/8 of an inch wide, and along the 2 inch side I've made a pencil mark at 1 inches and 1.5 inches. Along the short side I've made a pencil mark at 3/8 of an inch top and bottom, and I'm going to join up those pencil marks like so. So 3/8 of an inch across and then 1 inch and 1.5 inches. With the piece in this orientation, I'm going to line my ruler up with the pencil line and make a pencil mark at 1 1/8 of an inch and 1 3/4 of an inch, and I'm going to join those pencil marks up with the pencil mark on the top edge. So hopefully you can see where I'm going with this. So I'm going to cut along the pencil line up and then across. I'm going to remove above, cut along the pencil line. Let's just rotate that round and cut down. So this is my template for my tab. I'm going to sit my template on the cardstock so that the top edge of the template is lined up with this pencil mark here, and the top corner of the tab is lined up with the edge of the cardstock. I'm going to draw around, so that's given me one tab. Flip the cardstock over, do the same. So these are my tabs for my handle. And then once you've got your piece marked, you can cut that out and that will look like that. So you've got one handle complete, and then you can lay that on your second piece, and as long as your top edge of your cardstock and your score lines are lined up, you can use that as a template for your second handle. So if I draw around this one, I know then if I cut this out to this markings, these two handles are going to be the same. Fold and burnish along the score line, then I can take a wedge from the end. Bring your tray in and move the side pieces out of the way. So our two handles are now cut and they are the same shape. So we will have the glue tab will be a mountain fold, and the next score line will be a valley fold. So that's going to sit in the top like so. And then this one, the two of them are going to meet in the middle of the box like so. So you want to make sure that as your handles come together in the middle like so, they're actually both lining up. So if you need to do any trimming of the tabs to get them to meet in the same place, then obviously do that now before you stick them in. So I'm going to add some glue. This one is going to sit in like so. It's going to sit in this side. So these two handles are going to come together. They'll meet in the middle like so. And then the sides of the box are going to come up. Tabs will slot into place like so. If you find when you put the sides over that these sections here are a little bit springy, so maybe it's sitting further out like that, if you undo the lid like so, push these bits to the inside and then burnish them down like so, that will reduce any of the springiness that you might have when you shut the lid. So that comes together like so. You can use this template obviously again in the future on any other Gable style boxes you want to make. The key thing to bear in mind is, and you can use this if you want to move the tabs further up the handle if you so wish, if you want to change the height of the handles. The key thing to bear in mind is the distance between the bottom of the tab here, so that's this bit here, and the bottom of the handle, which starts here. In this case, this is 1/4 of an inch. Your slot on this side piece needs to start 1/4 of an inch away from the score line so that it can come up and fit over the top. And in terms of the length of the slot, I'm going to demonstrate on this piece here. This is the top of the tab here. So if we run a pencil across the top of the tab in line with this mark here, which is where the start of the slot is, upwards like so, that measurement is our 3/4 of an inch, so that's the length of the slot. Hopefully that makes sense. So the length of your slot needs to be the distance from, by drawing a line from the top corner of the tab across to when it would be in line with the bottom of the tab here. That's the length of your slot, and the start of your slot is the distance between the bottom of the handle and the start of the tab. So you can change up the tab, but you need to make sure that then that your slot is going to be in the right place and the right length on the side of your cardstock. Hopefully that is making sense. My box is now ready for decoration, and I'm going to go ahead and add on my pattern paper. Here's the finished decorated box. You can see I've added the pattern paper onto all of the sides. For this element here, I used a circle die, which was one below the one which I used for the shape, cut that to the right length, and then I was able to cut through the slot from the other side. The two panels here on the lid are 3 3/4 of an inch by 1 3/4 of an inch, and each of the sides are 3 3/4 by 1 1/4. Overall, I'm really happy with how the box has come out. I hope that you'll find the template for the tabs useful going forward, and I hope that I've been able to explain clearly enough the measurements that you need to consider if you want to change up the size and the placement and the length of your slot. I hope you've enjoyed today's video. If you haven't done so already, please consider subscribing to the channel, and until next time, thanks for watching.